Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There Live, an entertainment live stream and podcast focused on film and television. In today's episode, we are going to have a spoiler-filled discussion around the latest Batman movie, The Batman, which is screening in cinemas worldwide. My name's Keith Isles. I am an independent filmmaker, enthusiast of film and television. I love movies. I love watching them, making them, acting in them, and obviously discussing them. So I'm really looking forward to enjoying this with our panel of guests today. If you're new to the channel here, then welcome. Please do check out some of the other work that we have here. And if it's your sort of thing, consider giving us a like, subscribing to the channel. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notifications as and when different topics drop. If you're watching this live today, please do get involved in the live chat. I will try and get to as many comments as possible. But if you're finding us after the fact, hey, you might be at the cinema right now watching The Batman, for example. If you find us afterwards and you've still got comments, then please do put that in the comments section down below, and I will do my best to always respond. But joining me tonight, I have a panel who are very, very keen to talk about their thoughts on this film. I don't actually know what any of them think at this stage, so we'll get into it with the conversation. So first up, I have comic book aficionado and screenwriter Graeme Williams. Hello, Graeme.
Hi there.
How are you?
All well, thank you, Keith. Thanks for having me back.
No problem at all. I see you also have a Bat-related T-shirt on there.
I couldn't be on this show without my plethora of T-shirts, right?
Indeed. I wouldn't expect anything different, Graeme. So also joining us, I have filmmaker and mega geek David Diaz.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm all right.
Good. And finally, joining us from the other side of the pond, I have filmmaker and movie documentarian Charles de Lauzerica. Hey, Charles.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. How's things out there?
Stormy, very stormy. It's like Gotham out here right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Appropriate then.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, listen, guys, thanks so much for joining us to have a chat about this today. Before we actually get into The Batman, which is obviously the main topic here, there have been, Batman has been in film a number of times in various iterations over the decades, going back almost to the actual creation of the character, which was in the late 30s. And there have been films since the 1940s serials right the way up. And of course, in recent years, we've had many changes. And this is just in live action film. This is not to mention the numerous animated shows and television series, etc. But I just wondered, where are you guys at with regards to Batman prior to this film? Are you guys, big Batman fans? What are your thoughts on the sort of movies so far? Graeme, start with you.
I've had a long history with Batman. I'm not that old, so it wouldn't be stretching past the 1980s onwards. And with comics first, it was always either Spider-Man in Marvel or Batman in DC that were my main focuses and loves. But with the movies, of course, age and that coming of age as well. So my age going into 1989 and a coming of age of Batman was the mega hit, the mega blockbuster Batman there with Michael Keaton, of course, Jack Nicholson as the Joker. So that really kindled a love of Batman more so, and got me more interested in different types of comics. It's been a bit hit and miss since then, but then that's just personal preference for me. I'm a big fan of the animated series, came out through the 90s. Kevin Conroy is, for me, still, if you want to have this discussion already, still the best Batman. And big fan of Mask of the Phantasm as well. As a movie, I still think it stands true even to today as one of the best Batman movies there, to be discussed, I'm sure, gents. And then moving on through other movies, I think Chris Nolan's first two, let's not mention the third, Chris Nolan's efforts at Batman to redark the Batman and take it a bit more seriously. Big fan. And I was not quite first in line when going to the cinema to watch them. So very excited when I heard that this iteration of the Batman was to be created first, because that was a very long time ago. Due to the COVID, obviously, impact has massive impact on this movie. So I was genuinely very excited to see this one.
Excellent, thank you. And Charles, I know you and I share, a lot of similar tastes in films, and I know a lot of films that you're very passionate about. But I don't think we've ever actually talked about Batman. So, what's your kind of history with that?
Well, I mean, as a kid growing up in the 70s, I had basically the comics for the most part, and then also reruns of the 1966 series. And I loved them both because the comics, for me, I really enjoyed Batman as more of a detective and more as like sort of a Gotham street persona who would kind of come in and out of the shadows and deal with sort of like a little bit more grounded crime and not aliens and big super weapons and everything else we've seen in the years since. But I really liked how grounded Batman was. But then I also enjoyed the silliness of the TV series with Adam West. I thought it was goofy but fun and colorful and kind of smart in its own way too, just as a kind of almost like a parody or a satire of comics. So I enjoyed both extremes growing up as a kid. But then in the mid 80s, around the time that Dark Knight Returns hit the scene, Frank Miller's book, and that kind of was a huge revolution, I think, for not just Batman but comics overall. And then things like Arkham Asylum and just other kind of like darker, more psychologically probing books on Batman. I thought, yeah, there's a lot of great material here, and I'm starting to lean darker in terms of what I like. So when Tim Burton's film showed up, it was what it was. It was a behemoth. It was a blockbuster. It was a total mega corporate, monstrosity that we couldn't escape the Bat logo the summer of '89. And it was fine. It was like a good audience movie, but it didn't hold up with me over time. However, Batman Returns did. I thought Batman Returns was kind of a much more interesting film than Batman '89. And I feel like that's the film Tim Burton probably really wanted to make the first time out. So it was more of the kind of gothic freak show that he enjoys, kind of like the twisted, dark circus of his version of Gotham City. And then, as Graeme said, it was kind of like ups and downs and lefts and rights that I just kind of like, I'm not sure I liked all of it, but the one thing that's interesting about the Batman film series, it's almost like the Alien film series, where it's almost like a film festival. You have different filmmakers, different tastes, different styles, different stories, some recurring things, but on the whole, it's like a different flavor each time out, even with the same director sometimes. So that's been all very interesting to me. And I think with Christopher Nolan's kind of like, much more grounded, realistic, real world Batman, I really feel like those were sort of like his three films were him scratching his itch to be a Bond director, because basically the films are like Bond in a cape, and it really wasn't until the new one where I felt like now I'm exactly where I want to be with this character and this world, and this is what I've been waiting for all these years. I'm sure we'll get into that deeper, but it's been an interesting evolution, and not one where I get really bitterly upset if it doesn't go my way, because there's always more Batman. There's always more in the past, present, and future. There's always more Batman, so there's nothing to get upset about, and I'm in a very good mood this week because of this film.
Excellent. No, nicely put. Ian, what about you? Where are you at with sort of Batman in general? I know you were a big Marvel guy when you were a kid, and you used to enjoy those sort of comic books. Did you have much of a relationship with the Dark Knight?
Not really. I was a huge Marvel fan. I didn't really like DC. At the time, I didn't think DC was basically talking to me, because Marvel seemed to have a hold of ordinary people. Look at it this way. I always saw DC as the uh, the upper class people, and I saw Marvel as the working class people, and I kind of gravitated towards the working class people, especially things like Spider-Man, and you could really relate to him and stuff like that. So Batman, I've read a couple of comics, and I think it was the Danny O'Neill stuff that I read at the time. I watched the 60s campy TV show only when I was grown up. I didn't watch it when I was a kid when it was playing. But I did used to watch, and I can't remember what cartoon it was. It was the Batman cartoon with Robin in it. And he used to have that, I don't know, I can't describe it. I think it was a 70s cartoon. It didn't have Batmite in it or anything like that. It was before all that. I can't remember. And that's when I liked that cartoon. I used to watch that cartoon, but I wasn't really into Batman until Burton's film came out, and you kind of saw it in a different light, because the comics I used to read were, him in his blue and grey suit, and grey suit. Then he wandered around in fantastic art by O'Neill and stuff like that, and he used to team up with no, it was it's different. It was all different kind of books, wasn't it? It was a detective one, and there was another one, and there was another one, whatever. But I mean, Batman. To me, I wasn't really interested in Batman. I said until the Tim Burton film came out, and then a lot of people like to think that Dark Knight was the actual comic that actually changed the comic book world. It wasn't. It was Daredevil's Born Again, that Daredevil series that Miller started on first. He did that first, and for me, that changed the whole way comic book in Marvel and DC looked. And then he went to the Dark Knight, using the same things that he did on that Daredevil one straight onto the Dark Knight. A lot of people seem to forget that, but but Batman, I could take him or leave him, I guess. But I do like Burton, and I do like Nolan's version of Batman. I think Nolan's version just pips Burton's version. I think Nolan's version was a much better take. Because when you watch the Burton's one, it seems to be closed off, doesn't it? Because the studios were quite small. When you look at it now, he's trying to show you how big Gotham City was, but it wasn't really, because every set that he was on, it was quite small. And I think it was really good that Nolan actually brought it to a real city. It was New York, obviously, but it was like everything seemed to have spread it out and gotten bigger and stuff like that, and gotten kind of slightly more realistic and stuff. So yeah, that's my kind of relationship with Batman. As I said, I wasn't really into him apart from Burton and the Nolan films, I guess.
Yeah, no, I come from a similar ilk as well. I remembered the '66 reruns when I was a kid growing up, and that's what I thought Batman was for a long time. I didn't really read the comics, so I thought Batman's this kind of goofy hero that I knew nothing really about his backstory or anything like that. So it was really the Tim Burton film that that probably introduced me to the classic story, because I didn't really read many of the comics when I was a kid. I did read The Dark Knight Returns. I found that quite interesting, what you just said about the fact that Daredevil actually came first, from Frank Miller. And got into that, and then of course for me the animated series was,
it was great. Forgot about that.
That was something I really enjoyed. I really had a lot of time for the animated series, and of course like I think Graeme mentioned, The Mask of the Phantasm. I did actually see that when I was visiting the States one time. I actually got to see that on the big screen and thought that was fantastic.
Do we not do a stream on it, Keith?
We did a while back. Yes, we did. And
I remember.
I was a guest on that one. It wasn't one of mine.
Oh, I see. Yeah, of course. That's why.
I got invited on that one. And then, of course, I was at film school when the year Batman and Robin hit the cinema, and I was like, oh dear, I think I'm kind of done with this now. And, was obviously loved the reboot, loved the with Christopher Nolan, and loved the fact that not only did they make it grounded and realistic, but they explained a lot of things, like about his gear and whatever. But, and this is where we can really sort of open up this conversation. For me, I felt that this film, the Batman, I know obviously we've had in there as well an older Batman with what Zack Snyder did with the Dawn of Justice, etc. And I guess it was a year ago we had the Snyder cut of Justice League,
So. Was
wasn't
it
it?
a year ago?
About a year ago now. So of course we had a Ben Affleck's version, you know, a middle-aged Bruce Wayne, and whatever. But in terms of this one, I felt personally like this kind of hit a happy middle ground between the two. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Just jump in. Charles, I know you've got thoughts. Come on.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great to see a youngish Batman. That's, you know, he's been established. It's year 2 for him, but it's, you know, people know who he is for the most part, but they don't trust him necessarily. So, you know, it's like, I like that we can just skip all that origin stuff. We can skip seeing slow-mo shots of pearls hitting the ground for the umpteenth time. I like that we can skip just a lot of the distrust, like who is this guy, who is this vigilante? I mean, again, there's some of that still in play, but it's not as crazy as it was in some of the earlier stories where he's just starting. So that was really good. And I think, you know, Pattinson was fantastic in the role. I thought he was really, and it was great because he played a different Bruce Wayne that we've seen before as well, because most of the Bruce Waynes we've seen have, at least on the surface, embraced the billionaire playboy just as a cover, so that people don't think of him as Batman. Whereas as kind of a younger Bruce Wayne that Pattinson played was such a emo kind of recluse that you know, it's almost like you could almost imagine him being Batman, but you just don't think about it because he's not in the public eye as much as the other Bruce Waynes that we've seen. So really, that him appearing at the funeral scene is the only time he's really out. That's why the press freak out when they see him. So anyway, I think it's like you say, it's a good middle ground. It's a good compromise between all the other sort of ages and periods of his life that we've seen, and now it leaves room for more development, and to see where it goes next is going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
it's definitely. I agree there. It's more of a fresh take on Batman, and I was rifling through some of my comics earlier because after watching the movie. Similar to Ian, I hadn't tried to avoid as much as possible of the publicity and spoilers. But I, apart from reading Year One, Frank Miller, I haven't seen a portrayal of Bruce Wayne so young first. Also, too, so broken. So damaged, which you mentioned emo there. That was one of my first descriptions of him when I'd left the theatre last weekend. But yeah, so to have this type of broken young, disillusioned guy, I've not seen, because we've usually seen a strength to Batman and Bruce Wayne, haven't we? We've seen Bruce Wayne, the facade of him as the playboy, and that, to be honest with you, when I in the first few scenes, it was a bit unnerving for me because of what I'm used to, not what I was expecting, but what I was used to. But to have him so young and so reclusive as well. Was a different take, and I know that in this viewing, and I'm probably go back and watch it. My first viewing, that did unnerve me, and whether that was purposeful to have, as well as everything else, which I'm sure we'll talk about, the atmosphere of it all, the cinematography, music, but I did feel not exactly uncomfortable, but I think that there was a bit more thrill eventually in seeing a different Batman, most definitely, and I hadn't felt that in some time. Even the Nolan movies, there was some familiarity there. Yeah.
No,
so.
absolutely. They giving us something familiar but different, which is always a tricky balance. And what about you, Ian? Do you feel that they kind of straddled that line, or have you got different thoughts on that?
I kind of enjoyed 20% of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I came out the cinema feeling the same way I came out the cinema of Force Awakens, confused a bit.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, You know what, right? There's some nice bits in there, and there's some really stupid moments in the film as well. Really, really daft moments, you know. You want me to mention one?
Sure, no, let's use it to spark
So,
the conversation.
so he's with this guy, and this guy's got a bomb strapped to him, and Batman's looking, and the time is running down. And he sees it's going at 2 minutes, yet he doesn't run. He just stays there. The bomb blows him to Kingdom Come. That's in one stupid bit. Next stupid bit is, how could the police take him all the way to the police station without taking his mask off?
Oh yes, I did actually think
so
that
silly,
while
so silly.
I was watching it.
But also the thing that really disappointed me the most, though, is I say this with heavy heart because I do like the Batman movies. Is one, the portrayal of Bruce Wayne, which was none and void. There was nothing there. Batman was okay. He was okay. But I heard before I went in that it was going to be Detective Batman. And I was like, this is fantastic. We've never had a Detective Batman. And when I saw the film, all he was doing was walking in the crime scene, moping around. It wasn't like he was like Patrick Jane that was showing everybody up and how great he was as a detective, you know, going this, that, the other, and making everybody look like idiots, which I would have loved because he used to do some of that in the comics, you know, see things here and there, whatever. It wasn't. He was just really moping around and stuff like that. And I was thinking, is this the right take to take for a Batman detective thing? And then the most daftest thing in the world, when he pulls the carpet up and he takes the spray and he sprays the floor and he points all these arrows there, and you're thinking, why couldn't have just used a blackboard or something? Or could he not just draw it on a piece of paper? Why skinny Batman had to draw this thing on the ground? And
on that,
I don't know.
I'm a house owner, okay, and I'm currently we're changing some rooms, doing some DIY.
I did like it though.
If I had a mansion. Yeah. I tell you,
you would pull up the carpet.
There was no pulling the carpet. Remember, he moved the table. It was all wooden.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an orphan. Nor am I a billionaire either. But however,
I thought you were.
Opportunity. Yeah, these t-shirts.
T-shirt. Yeah, the t-shirt.
They're not cheap, are they? No. But no. That one, and for me, guys. That scene itself, when you start saying, "Oh, what's he doing?" I'll be honest with you. I've gone to the cinema to watch a theatrical production. Effectively, I want to watch cinema. That was cinematic. The whole movie was tremendously cinematic. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to translate to the
you can't
to the
question
small
that.
screen.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's elements there. So I know there's maybe some silly moments or some plot holes, but overall, I suppose then, Ian, you mentioned that you were only 20% happy.
Yeah,
was it 80% because it was because of these plot holes?
There was loads of different things as well. It was far too long. I went with my nieces and my sister, and my nieces fell asleep twice halfway through it, and then my sister was just sitting there because, you know, my sister loved movies. The week before, we went to see Uncharted with Tom Holland, which is a stupid film, but so enjoyable, really enjoyable nonsense. But, you know, you go to the cinema to I guess, to get some kind of entertainment out of it. And I did enjoy this film, but I just thought that they just took the wrong path with it. Do you know what I mean?
No,
that's just me. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, a lot to unpack there. Just picking up on a couple of your points, or your earlier points there. I mean, I think, and what I felt about the, the whole Bruce Wayne detective thing was I felt that
Batman.
Batman detective thing. Should I say? I felt that for the first time we had kind of a fallible Bruce Wayne. You know, somebody that is younger. I mean, ironically, I think Robert Pattinson's actually a little bit older than Christian Bale was when he took the role on.
Really? Wow.
But, you know, clearly playing a younger Batman earlier in his career here. And I felt in quite a number of the spots of the movie, yes, he did make mistakes. He did screw up. But I kind of felt that was sort of, you know, he's not... Where they're going to take this, who knows? But he's not the Batman that we're used to from the other films at this stage yet. And you know,
he can't be. It's only year 2, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's what I mean. So the fact that he did mess up on occasions, it's just like the thing with the squirrel jumpsuit type thing, you know, where he jumped off the building, and we've seen it 100 times where, you know, Batman elegantly glides off a building and goes, you know, and you see that the bus is going under the bridge, and you think in any of the other movies he would have just nipped through there, really, but he messes it up, and he, you know, he crash lands and all of this sort of thing. And likewise with his detective work, you know, it's not that he's bad at what he's doing. It's just that there are things that he misses and messes up on. I mean, Charles, what are your thoughts around that? Because you said you quite enjoyed this take on Batman / Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I think I'm more on the glasses half full side of this argument. I don't think he was actually walking around moping. I think he was calculating quite a bit. There's many shots of him checking things out. You know, it's his perspective that we're kind of following. And I feel like, you know, he would then go up to Gordon, or he would then kind of nod to a cop or whatever. I mean, he was kind of tracking things quietly. He wasn't like doing a big sort of you know, Agatha Christie, you know, breakdown of what the scene was. So I kind of like that he was sort of and again, not to, I know I'm going to probably mention Blade Runner a few times, but it kind of reminded me of Deckard in Blade Runner when Deckard would go into a scene and kind of quietly check things out. And he kind of picks up the snake scale and all that. So I feel like this Batman is more, I mean, not just the character, but the film itself is more of a Blade Runner type film than a Batman film. And that's of course why I flipped out for it. I loved it so much, but, yeah, I mean, I think I'm really curious to see where he goes from here. I think it's one thing to say, yes, he's young and he's still making mistakes. And it's like Bond and Casino Royale, you know, punching through a wall instead of going around it, or, you know, like doing all of these things that Bond awkwardly did in that first movie. And that's the beginning of his growth, right? That's the beginning of his journey. And over time, he gets better and more pro and, you know, more mature. So hopefully we'll see the same with this Batman. But I don't think he started from a total place of you know, incompetence or walking into a place.
Oh, no. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
it's early days for him, and let's see how he grows. That's all.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying that I thought he was incompetent in any way. I'm just saying that it's a more fallible Batman than we're used to. And I mean, that led into everything. Like, one of the things that I particularly liked about it is obviously that the Nolan films were very good at explaining everything, like how he got, you know, his gadgets and his tech and his costume and all this sort of thing. And as a result, it sort of all made sense that it was, you know, very polished and very you know,
technology driven
and high tech. But with this, you know, the fact that I love the fact that the logo wasn't actually a logo. It was literally the Batarang, because at this point he hasn't, you know, had it miniaturized to flip out and fit in a, you know, nice utility belt. And his belt was literally like a tactical belt that the SAS or something would wear with torches and all of this sort of stuff. And I just sort of thought that that again was, it sort of made sense in the sort of world we're at and the stage that Bruce is at as well, because he clearly showed that he wasn't really into his day job. You know, he wasn't
or night job.
Exactly. You know, so I just sort of thought that all of that fed perfectly into what they were doing with this.
I think I
worked really well.
I kind of missed the fantastical elements of Batman in this one. I think I was thinking about it quite a lot, about why it didn't do anything for me. And I think even though it's year 2, people come to the cinema I do, I can't speak for you guys, to be entertained and to laugh and enjoy myself. Yes, there are films that are depressing and it's made that way. But you know, I wanted the things that I wanted for Batman, as I wanted him to be triumphant, 1, because he's Batman. 2, I wanted the fantastical elements in there, like Nolan had, like the car chase. You compare the car chase in the first, I think it was the first Batman, and this one. Batman's driving on roofs and he's leaping different bridges and stuff. And that was fantastic. And when I was with the audience was like, you can tell they were really into it. And the car chase was so well done in that. In this one, right, it was just a car chase. There was no gadgets. There was an explosion. I expected the Penguin to go out the window, go bang, bang, bang. Do you know, like an ordinary chase, but there was nothing special about that chase at all. And most of the time it was raining and you couldn't see much. And the way it was shot, I'm pretty sure that was done for atmospheric reasons and stuff like that. But sure. I know what you guys are saying, and he's young and it's his second year and stuff like that. But still, and Batman never even he didn't even catch the Riddler. The police got him in the end. I think his detective work led them to him, yes, but there was no triumphant thing. Batman didn't do something. He goes into the nightclub, and what about all the innocent people? What about if a stray bullet goes around and shoots someone when he's fighting those people with guns and stuff? He wasn't even thinking of that either. Then again, excuse, it's year 2. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then again, by the end of the film, Ian, he's definitely triumphant. I mean, he essentially saves most of Gotham City. No,
he doesn't. A lot of people got killed.
Well, a lot of people got killed. Yeah, but
that's what I'm saying. But in the other Batman films, he stopped the tragedies, didn't he? He stopped them before they actually happened. And this one, he couldn't stop it, right? And a lot of people got killed. And then the mayor gets shot. And I was thinking, oh, bloody hell, she got shot. And she's like, like that. And then next thing you know, she's in the water. She's okay. But Batman's going, follow me. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'm coming. Do you know what I mean? The things like that just kind of, I don't know, up and down, and there was, I don't know. I'm trying to think why I don't like it.
I've only seen it the once, but when I came out, my initial thoughts were, I mean, obviously I like the fact that we'll get into the style and everything, but I like the fact that this was kind of like a Fincher movie. It was kind of like Zodiac, with a bit of Saw thrown in there and stuff.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
But I felt that what this story was doing, I felt it was kind of his journey from a vigilante to a hero, because he was. Yeah. Did you guys not think that was sort of the journey that this film had?
It became that, yes, but going back on a point there with Ian on the thrills. Actually, I saw this movie as a detective thriller, so it was. If you've heard people talk about procedural,
sure.
It was a thriller more than an actioner. In fact, it wasn't. Okay, so it was a thriller with some action sequences there. But yeah, I totally agree with you there, Keith. We saw his arc. We got to understand Bruce Wayne's story and his pain. Charles alluded earlier on to not seeing the pearls and not the shot of them in the rain.
That's saving our pain.
we still got to see
that in the Joker movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what we did again, we had a fresh take on looking back at the Waynes. They weren't perfect. Bruce Wayne isn't perfect. This Batman isn't perfect. Yes, he's the most fallible there. So for me, we had this thriller, and the more I've thought about it since I watched the movie, this is actually the most realistic. So Ian, you made a comment about
no, I just hate it,
which is fine. But I just in just reviewing this rather than whether I loved it or not, it's a review of the fact that this was actually the most realistic that I've ever seen. Yeah, there wasn't the Joel Schumacher.
Oh no, you don't want that
craziness. No, but if you look at the spectrum, talked about what Charles mentioned earlier on, that we've had past, we now have a present Batman as well, and we're lucky enough, very much like with any music or any kind of media where we live now, when we live, I should say, is that we can actually pick and choose. So we have this particular take, and I think what the writers, producers, and then the rest of the crew, actors have done is with everything that's been going on with Batman for 83 years now, to then bring up, because it was 39, 40, wasn't it? I always forget that day because it was Superman first in the comics, but. With that, these guys have actually managed to create something completely different, has made also a point of making it Batman detective without having, I don't know who mentioned earlier on, spaceships and monsters and aliens and the like. So that as an appreciation of at least what has been produced here, and having a fallible Batman, that's definitely something that has churned through my thoughts.
Well, all
Almost
Batmen
like a
were
retelling.
fallible. All of them were fallible. All the iterations of Batman
but
were fallible.
not all of them are as well adjusted as the previous big screen Batman Bruce Waynes, because this is the first time we've seen a Bruce Wayne that is, as been mentioned before, damaged, broken, really psychologically scarred. The previous Bruce Waynes have all been, there's lip service to that his parents dying hurt him, and he was raised an orphan with Alfred, and it's been the same routine for a while. And then yet he's still able to maintain a life as a billionaire playboy and wears the tuxedo and does all that stuff again as a show. But he's still able to do that. He's still well adjusted. He can still walk down the street and talk to people. This Bruce Wayne is damaged. This Bruce Wayne is basically another version of one of the villains in a way. Mm-hmm. He's basically like a villain. He's as screwed up as Riddler is in many ways. It's just that he happens to fortunately be on the side of good, just barely. And maybe he'll get more good and more balanced as he goes. But right now, he is flawed beyond belief. And that's what I loved about this Batman. It's like, I'm kind of done with, again, the Bondian type Bruce Waynes. And this Bruce Wayne is really screwed up. And who would in their right mind do all the stuff that Bruce Wayne did to become Batman in terms of designing the costume, making the Batmobile, making the cave, all that stuff to fight crime, when there's a million other ways he could have done it with his resources and his money. But he wants to get out there and he wants to inflict pain on criminals. And I feel like that right there is a version of a villain.
I think his parents tried to do that, didn't they, with their money? They tried to fix Gotham by using the money and resources that they had. I think in the Nolan version, that's where they were going with it. I didn't like the idea that they reconstructed his past and made his wife go. His mother was mad, and he went to Falcone to get this guy killed, and in the end he didn't. He just wanted him to rough him up and stuff. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the way they treated Batman in this at all. I mean, I understand he's a broken Batman, but he didn't really do anything to show you as Bruce Wayne that he was broken. One thing that made me laugh, right, is when he took his mask off. Do you remember when he took his mask off and you had the when they paint their eyes? When he took his mask off, it just looked normal. Do you know what I mean? And I like the other Batmen, if they took their mask off, they had these big black eyes, but it just looked like he had eyeshadow or something.
Was it raining then?
Maybe probably, yeah.
I know when I wear my mascara, maybe crying it'll happen, but rain will just wash it off.
Yeah.
I buy the mascara, of course.
Yeah.
Joe, I feel like you wanted to say something.
Sorry, mate. Did I cut you off?
No. I was cutting you off. My apologies. It was more about your comment though about him ripping up the carpet and spraying the case out on the floor. I mean, again, that goes to him being basically the other side of the coin of Riddler, right? I mean, he's kind of doing his own thing, in that he's not well-adjusted Batman who could do it up on the whiteboard or have a computer breakdown of it. He is really screwed up, And you actually said something I forgot what you said that I was going to target, but another thing was going back to this not having a good action scene. I really think that one of the biggest inspirations for this film was Seven. Right. I mean, I think obviously everyone talked about the Fincher of it all and the Zodiac of it all, but Seven was a huge part of it. And Seven, if you watch Seven, it has one amazing action scene. It's got that foot chase, right? And the rest of it is flashlights in the dark, really mopey, really walking around in the grit and the rain, and just and for those of us who've always wanted that in a Batman film and have in varying degrees watched or not enjoyed or whatever certain other Batman films that were fantastical, that had big action scenes, that had really great color and splash and all that stuff. I just wanted this one, and I got it finally. It's it's not perfect, but I think 80%. I'm like the flip side of Ian with a 20%. My 80% is I finally got the Batman film I wanted to see at least just once, because we had so many other films that just didn't go there, but it went to all the other places that were fun and entertaining and popcorn and all that. This, to me, I wanted a really nasty, ugly, gritty, and again, Blade Runner-y Batman. I finally got it. So that's why I'm happy.
He's got the brain.
I'm depressed and I'm an evil person. I don't know, maybe, but like I really liked it. I really did.
All right.
Yeah. Now I have to say I'm with you there on that one, Charles. Just to sorry, I don't want to ignore the comments coming in. So the Comic Crush, by the way, Comic Crush, another great channel. Anybody that's into their comic books and wants aficionados on that, go and check out the Comic Crush at thecomiccrush.com. And I really appreciate that they're watching us this evening. It's worth noting that Daredevil Born Again, starting with Daredevil issue 227 and The Dark Knight Returns issue 1, were published a month apart, meaning Miller would have been working on them both at the same time.
But Daredevil came out before Batman, which makes it the first. Yes, so
fair enough. But no, it's just nice. I didn't want to ignore that comment because
it's nice. It's nice of him to point it out.
I mean, there was also Watchmen, in the mid '80s. Like the mid '80s were just a revolutionary period. It was.
I loved the mid '80s comics, and I mean, especially Sin City. I mean, when I saw the comic Sin City, I had to buy it. Do you know what I mean? It was so good. Yeah. Anyway,
no,
Charles made a comment on about the villain aspect of Bruce Wayne. I hadn't even considered that, to be honest. I considered the obviously during seeing different take, yes, damaged, yes, but on the villains this time, I was talking to somebody else who has seen it as well, and we've had one villain, which is the Riddler, who we haven't actually seen doing riddles, as in really testing, and then Batman solving them in a detective guise, or at least that approach as well. So in that there was villainy, but actually I've never seen such a brutal, or at least another damaged or as damaged Riddler, and therefore as damaged a villain before. So you've got this where past Riddler, it was Jim Carrey, and he was just a bit miffed. He was just a bit angry.
I liked it.
He got sacked. He got sacked and went all crazy.
Yeah.
Fine for the kids, right? But this guy, we eventually, with the Martha Wayne connection, with the orphanage as well, and so we have that aspect. But then we have the other two, and the Penguin's usually to write it. Okay, he's usually the uber rich, similar to Bruce Wayne, uber rich, ugly looking guy, Oswald Cobblepot. Well, now here what they've done is they've made him more into the gangster, and they've really brought the gangster element there, which totally was not what I was expecting. So a big surprise there. Catwoman, completely different. Just wasn't expecting that nuance to her, and how they blended her into the plot as well. And I was really glad of that. It was a vast improvement for me on the third Batman, the Dark Knight Rises, where she really wasn't blended in as thick to the plot. And of course, Carmine Falcone as well, who ultimately was the lead, was the antagonist, another antagonist then. But we had so many strands with so many villains intertwined here. And Ian, I know you mentioned the length earlier. I don't know, maybe this is a discussion. Could they have made this story with the detective elements, with these villains and the backstory? Could they have actually truncated the time without losing any of the intellect of this, or
I think they could have,
or the complexity of the story being unravelled for us? Because I never once personally felt confused by the detective element. So with all these layered villains, again done differently, but so much of them actually influencing the Batman too. I just wonder this. Sure. And there's about 3 points separate there. But
I was going to say that there's a lot to unpack there, Graham.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I mean, first, let's start with the Riddler then, because
What has he been? He looks familiar. What has he been in? Because I saw his face. What's he been in?
Paul Dano.
Yeah, what's he been in?
There Will Be Blood.
He's great in that.
Right. Okay.
Swiss Army Man. If you're into your indie movies.
Oh, is that with what's his name? Harry Potter? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Paul Dano's been in multiple. He was in Little Miss Sunshine as well.
Of course. I couldn't place him when I saw his face.
Yeah. Lots of indie work. Lots of, for me, stellar work as well, and this was no exception there. So
exactly.
Paul Dano could do subtle and he could do uber crazy, and I think he actually managed to go through the full spectrum there. In this performance.
Am I right? Is this only the third live action adaptation of the Riddler? You know, we've obviously had Frank Gorshin in the 60s and of course Jim Carrey in the 90s. But have there been, and I know he's obviously been in loads of animated stuff, but and video games and whatever, but is this only the third live action?
He might have been in the 30s one. Keith, the 30s. You know, was it the 30s? The Batman serial? Was it serial? Yeah, he might have been. Yeah, he might have been.
I think in that they never had any of the rogues gallery. I think.
I see.
Fighting gangsters and again, probably closest to noir.
Because when the Riddler was actually created, because Joker was effectively the first villain created. Right from the off, so they had to build up those villains, of course, great over the years. But good question. That's for the viewers, isn't it, Keith?
There you go. Yeah, if anyone knows, let us know for sure. But on the Riddler, I mean, first of all, I loved the way that he was introduced when you had the the politician, the candidate on the phone. And we just see, when the TV comes on to a light, we see the image of him up against the wall and everything. And again, that was proper, that was proper dark. That was proper Fincher, And I mean, this is the, next to sort of Heath Ledger's version of the Joker, this is kind of like the scariest Batman villain we've had in a film. Would you guys agree or argue with that?
I think that's true, and I also think this is, to go back to the Fincher of it, this is kind of like more where it steers into Zodiac, because Riddler actually lifts some lines straight from Zodiac where he says, "This is the Zodiac, or this is the Riddler speaking on the phone," or he says, "Goodbye." He says that kind of weird tone that the Zodiac killer had in Fincher's film. So like there's a little bit of Saw in there, a little bit of Jigsaw's gadgets mixed in with the Zodiac, but I think he's the creepiest, scariest of all the Batman villains we've seen on the big screen that I can think of. Like none of them really. I mean, Penguin, like Danny DeVito's Penguin, was creepy in a really, really grotesque way, but he wasn't scary.
But that's not true, Charles. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger was scary. Let's face it.
That's true. Good point. Fair point.
So the Comic Crush has put us straight once again. So FYI, a live-action Riddler appeared in the TV show Gotham, which I have to admit, beyond the first season, I didn't really see.
I liked it.
I think it was just
I thought it was okay
when I was watching it. So thank you for that, Comic Crush. We appreciate it.
Very good.
There you go. Me and my facts sometimes aren't always there, but there you go. Paul Dano, really like what he did with this. Really like that. I mean, obviously they changed the name as well, right? Because Edward Nygma is very comic booky, isn't it?
Yes,
Nygma.
it is. Yeah.
So
but that goes back to the fact that this was realistic. Again, it must have been all these decision points when writing to say we can't make it too laughable. We can't make it too joyous. There had to be those decisions there. To even with not having Oswald, it was Oz, right? So it was deliberate choice there, and just playing more low key all the way. I thought, apart from some action sequences, a lot of this film was quite low key, and they just relied on the intelligence of the viewer, of the audience, to help pick apart or see how Batman.
I think they could have found a better balance, in my opinion. They could have found a better balance between that and actually making it a bit more fantastical, because Batman is a comic book, and even when he was doing his detective work, he still did some of that stuff in the comics, in the DC comics, as far as I remember. But I mean, this is the only problem I've got with it personally. I mean, there's other problems which I won't mention, but I mean, I did enjoy it. I'm sounding very negative, but that's what I normally do anyway when I review a film.
It makes a good conversation, Ian.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I take the points that Charles said completely, and I actually embraced them wholeheartedly. Yeah. But exactly. But as I said, but the thing is, I still stand by what I'm saying. I think they could have found a much better balance between having a little bit fantastical in there and still keeping that element that it is kind of realistic. As I said, I personally think Nolan did it better, but Nolan did go straight off the board like this one did, like with the when did the Joker find time to arrange all that stuff on the boats and stuff like that in the in the second one? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the same thing with this one. Where did the Riddler find the time to put bombs, where all the things are, where it can flood the whole city? But anyway, that doesn't matter, because that bit was kind of stretching it a bit, wasn't it? But there, as I said, there were certain things in there that I really loved. I loved the lighting. I kind of, the music made me fall asleep, actually. Tried to make me fall asleep. It was like a funeral march kind of thing, but it was okay. It was okay. Loved the performances. I liked what's his name? Colin Farrell. I thought he was really good, and I liked
unrecognizable Colin
exactly.
Farrell
I liked the woman who played Catwoman, apart from her mask, which like it was knitted by her mum or something, and you can easily tell who she is because it was so wide. What was the point of wearing it? I don't know. So, but apart from that, it was okay.
But in the world of Batman and Gotham, etc., not everybody knows that she is Lenny Kravitz's daughter. So it's fine. They don't follow the
She's
same,
gorgeous though.
Music scene as we do here in the real world.
Okay, but I mean, on the it's actually, you saying that's kind of reminded me of something. So on the sort of realistic versus the fantastical sort of thing, what the only, I mean, I've already talked about like the fact that I like that Bruce Wayne doesn't have a Lucius Fox. He's not using the wealth to have all of these nicely produced gadgets and toys and all of this sort of stuff. And a lot of it's somewhat homemade and, that kind of thing. But one of the things that obviously he did have that was high tech and was sort of Mission Impossible quality was these, contact lenses. Film and do facial recognition with. It was like, oh, well, that's kind of handy that he's got that gadget, isn't it?
He's got all that money to do that, yet he hasn't given Alfred a mobile phone. Because when he was trying to ring him, he's like, "Hey, you got a bomb! You got a bomb! Where's this mobile phone? Wait, well, there's an old-fashioned phone over there, and it's ringing, and you can't hear it." It's those kind of things that just really took me out of the film.
When you're that wealthy, that you've got a landline
exactly, than a mobile phone.
Apparently, Christopher Nolan doesn't have a cell phone, so maybe that's a nod to
maybe.
him.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Also, did you see Robin in it? Robin was in it, wasn't he, in the beginning?
No, where was he?
So basically, the guy plays Robin in, I can't remember what show it's called. I think it's some DC show that's on Titans. The guy plays Robin in Titans. He's the guy with the half painted face in the beginning.
Right. He wasn't Robin; he was another character.
Well, it's the same actor.
I see. Okay.
Right. So I don't know whether they're going to connect them both. I don't know. So we'll find out, right?
I have to say, I mean, this is sorry, I'm going a bit broader here than the main topic. But one of the things that I think, you see, I really enjoyed this movie, as I did Joker a couple of years back.
Love Joker,
and I just think DC are better off when they're not trying to emulate the Marvel.
That's
model
right.
And
agree with you.
Their own thing.
Yeah.
And you know, that trying to sort of cash in on what Marvel was doing, because they're very different, and I just sort of think that just stick to doing like they do with this, and creating, you know, individual character franchises rather than having them all sort of crossover works personally from my point of view. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm kind of liking this. Normally I like these crossovers and things to be connected and continuity and all that, but in this case I think it works.
It would work if the Joaquin Phoenix Joker met him, because that feels like the same world. Do you know what I mean?
It does.
So
although
that would be really cool.
is very different because that was
doesn't matter.
Specifically
Time travel. I don't know. But it would have been really cool. But you know, obviously that's not going to happen, is it? So yeah.
Well, we've got.
I just read an interview. I'm sorry. I just read an interview with Matt Reeves where he said there's a likelihood the Joker is not going to come back at all. I mean, just his little cameo they had in this film.
Yeah,
and that he won't. There's a good chance he won't even come back, which I think is great. It's like we've been Jokered out to the max, and I feel like after and considering that 2 different actors have won Best Actor Oscars for playing the Joker, I kind of feel like let's let those guys just, you know, like retire the jersey for the Joker for a while, because he's been so well served. And I kind of feel like I was not that compelled by the Joker in this, the little cameo. It's like it was perfectly fine performance, but I'm not sure I got all the makeup and stuff on his face with like what that was supposed to be. I need to watch it again before I figure that out. But I would love to see the Joker not show up for like at least a couple movies. Maybe bring him in at the end of the 3rd or something. But
yeah,
but he's the main villain of Batman, isn't he? I mean, I don't know, if they don't bring him in, it won't bother me. But I still think it'd be still nice to see another interpretation of the Joker. Would be cool, I guess. Sorry, Graeme.
No, I was just going to ask there that I don't usually follow to know what's happening up in the run up to a movie, especially these days, because there's so many spoilers.
Yeah, exactly.
But away from that and the future, then, you know, I've seen some snippets of interviews from Matt Reeves, but nowhere have I seen what the future is. So you say there, guys, that he said, well, actually, I think Charles, you just said that there's going to be no Joker, at least in the Matt Reeves universe. So does that mean that there is more planned? I think, Keith, you mentioned there may be a TV spin-off planned. So
yeah,
what is in the room
the
at
Penguin
the moment?
Okay, I mean, we've jumped ahead a little bit, but yes, there are. My understanding is Colin Farrell is supposed to be reprising his role in a Penguin-focused series, which is going to be set in the same universe as this, and is going to fill in the gap between the release of this movie and the release of the second film. Okay. Likewise, there's supposed to be a Commissioner Gordon or a Gotham PD prequel series, which is you know, when the Batman first appears, and it's focused on Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, or sorry, Lieutenant Gordon, as he would be at that point. But basically, you know, trying to figure out who this vigilante is that's doing it. That's what I've heard, but I really don't know how accurate that is. It's just the rumor mill. And then of course they did set up, you know, at the end, as we've already got to as well, they did set up a cameo of Joker, played by is it Barry Cohan? I forget the name of this actor.
Barry Keoghan,
is it? Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
You know, I don't know whether that was literally just a cameo or whether there are plans to you know.
No, there's a really great interview with Matt Reeves about that, and then also the new series that are in the works. But when he went to Barry Keoghan, he basically said, "Look, I don't know if this is going to be an ongoing thing. I don't know where we're going to have you back. I don't know if the Joker is going to become a recurring character." It's like he basically said, "We just need to have this scene." And apparently, there's a deleted scene from the Batman with Joker that he was really sad to cut out, but it was just, again, the movie was running long. So apparently once enough people have seen the Batman, he's going to release it. I don't know if that'll be on home video or it'll just be like on YouTube, but Reeves says he is going to release this deleted scene with Joker. It's going to explain a bit more about what's going on at Arkham. But he also said that the Gotham PD show is probably not going to happen now.
Right, okay.
That they are probably going to lean into to an Arkham series of some kind, or at least a limited series. But the Gotham PD one seems like that's kind of hit the wall and not
okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, we have not long past had a Gotham show focused on Jim Gordon anyway, right? So,
I did like that.
Did you? I only
like
did the first season, and I've kind of lost the thread with it. But the bit I saw, I thought was quite interesting. But
it's very expensive. You can tell it's very expensive, that show.
Oh, expensive to be made, not that you had to pay per episode, right, Ian?
Sorry, say again?
Well, I was being facetious with you there. I was saying it looked expensive, or did you have to pay a lot per episode?
Yeah. Okay.
Very good. Very good.
Very droll of me. Apologies.
It's all right.
That's all right. But back to the sort of we were kind of looking at the characters sort of one at a time here. I mean, back to the whole Riddler thing. I think what I thought was absolutely superb about this, and I really thought it worked and hit home here, was as I said, I want to see it again to try and pick up on more clues as it goes. But essentially, his reasons and his sort of beef with everything, beef with the, if you like, the privileged class within Gotham, right, was the fact that he, just like Bruce, was also an orphan. But as I said, with Bruce Wayne, yes, he's an orphan, but he's also, incredibly wealthy. He's a billionaire, and
was that his original origin? Was that the Riddler's original origin in the comics? Was he an orphan?
I don't know.
Maybe Comic Crush can answer that question.
Yeah, maybe Comic Crush, if they're still listening, could answer that. I actually don't know what the Riddler's backstory. I mean, I don't think it's really been. It's certainly on film, because obviously the films are the things that I know better. Hasn't really been delved into, because the 60s show never really did backstories on any of the characters.
No, they didn't.
Crazy. And fun, like Charles said, there's a huge part of that Batman 66 which is massively watchable and great fun.
Yes.
But
Chief O'Hara, where's Chief O'Hara? That's what I say.
but also, the Jim Carrey performance, which Batman Forever gets a lot of crap off people, but I actually don't mind Batman Forever. I'm not going to lie. Actually, Batman and Robin went off the rails, but I thought Batman Forever was quite fun in what it was trying to do. But again, he was more of a disgruntled employee in that one.
Yeah, it was.
So I don't really know. Unless...
Maybe it's like the Joker, because the Joker never really had an origin either, apart from killing Joker, I guess, which they did this, which I thought was fantastic personally. But I don't know. On film, they've never really. Well, Tim Burton explained, I guess.
Yeah, that was different though, because they contained the
they did.
That was
but usually it's the most famous is the Red Hood for that, or even Batman Mask of the Phantasm. He was actually one of the lieutenants in that as well, who then for whatever reason, but we never saw that transition in that movie, nor the animated series there. But from the comics themselves, Joker was usually it's the Red Hood, or even I think he was the Killing Joke, isn't it?
Yes, Killing Joke.
In part that he was put onto that, but he was a stand-up comedian.
I love that. I think that's, if I was to make a Batman film, that's the origin for the Joker I would go for, because it's
origin
so
of
good.
the Joker, because the movie's been turned into the comic's been turned into a animated movie. Yeah,
it did. Yeah, it's terrible. That cartoon was terrible. They added Batman having sex with Batgirl and all that rubbish. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell's that all about?
Yeah,
but the thing is that the comic is so small, though. It wasn't like a big thing. It was a very small story. In fact, a short story. You can call it a short story. So they had to stretch it out, didn't they, in the cartoon? So still didn't work though.
Yeah, I've been looking online quite as quickly as I possibly can here, and just as compulsion stems from parental abuse, and actually, so he wasn't an orphan. So I should take a different origin story here, and maybe more. I'd have to dig into it. Riddler not being one of my favourites through the comics of the villains that have been. Ironically, more intelligent villains, because yes, he does play with the with riddles, but that's just games. Yeah. Batman usually solves them quickly. He did in this one, but here you had more of an intelligent and organised Riddler. He was very organised with his planning, wasn't he? Every project manager out there in the universe must be pleased.
And don't forget, this was Edward Nashton, not Edward Nigma. So there you go. If we're doing multiverse stuff, it's a different version.
In Gotham, he was he the coroner, something like that, and in the actual Gotham series itself, because he was working for the GPD, and he was, I think he was one of the and then something happens and he just goes mental. Basically, he has split personality, the Riddler in Gotham. So he becomes the Riddler, and it's not really him. It's do you know what I mean? So
a fresh take again. So fair or foul, whatever whether you like Gotham or not. Yeah, it's another take, and
it's another take. Yeah.
I think the Riddler was from the 1940s. Created then, and if you've got 70 years of different writers and artists, trying to get some life out of these characters, then hats off to them. And again, sounds as if I didn't get into Gotham. I did the 4-episode rule on Gotham and gave it up. I just couldn't go there. It wasn't. It was too soap opera-esque for me. I dropped that. But it's going back to what we have been discussing is a new take, whether you like it or not. I guess we're still debating here, but fair play to them for making a lot of Batman comic fans happy by hitting the detective aspect and really unpicking what had been going on in Gotham. Because this Gotham in this movie, one thing that I did think afterwards is, why are so many people still living there? It's a horrible place. Now, don't get me wrong, we didn't really see it in the daytime, did we?
Yeah, no. But listen, also, another question I like to ask myself is, what is it? What's his name? Who's John Trudeau play again? I can't remember his name. Why is he living in a hovel? Why isn't he living in a penthouse? He's got all that money, right? Next time you see him, he's like playing, snooker. Everything's all dark and like why isn't he? He's rich. Why is he not playing in his penthouse or something where he's overlooking the city or something? I'm like, what? Anyway, whatever. I guess that was the tone.
It's a playground, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Also,
I love jealous. He's got to prove
exactly.
It.
I love the colours though. I love the red and the orange because the whole film was red and orange and rain. So I like that aspect of it as well.
Absolutely. So Charles, have you got any more thoughts from your point of view on the version of the Riddler in this, other than liking the sort of connections to Zodiac Killer, etc.?
Well, I liked how when he was unmasked, kind of like how puffy he was. He was like a substitute teacher. He just seemed so not villainous. He seemed like just a kid in a way that just ended up in this situation, even though he obviously has a diabolical mind and he's planned all this like horror out. But when you actually see him with those glasses and that hair, he seems soft and puffy, which is I was not expecting, even though I know what he looks like, off screen. But I just appreciated that he wasn't, this kind of like cut, hard looking villain. That he was just like a doofus. He was just like this kind of just like dope, and I kind of like, just the way he looked, and that was disarming. I think that goes back to Zodiac when you see the Arthur Lee Allen character who's kind of bald and fat and bloated, and it's like, and you think, and you learn that he's probably the Zodiac. It's like, oh, that's interesting, because it's like it's not what I was expecting at all, when you're wearing the costume. I mean, even the Riddler's costume is like the Zodiac's costume, and very, with the mask and all that, and then the kind of like the crosshairs with the question mark in it. I mean, it's very, very similar. So again, it's like I finally with this film kind of got the Fincher Batman. That's not really a Fincher Batman, but it's fine. It's like I've always going back. Believe it or not, you may not believe me when I say this, but going back to the early '90s, I was telling friends I would love to see Fincher direct Clint Eastwood in The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh man, I want to go.
That would have been awesome.
And this was before Seven. I was saying this. I was saying this after Alien 3. So that just shows you how focused I was on Fincher's talent. And I thought, man, this guy, and plus all the commercials he did, he could do a great Batman, but with Clint Eastwood as Batman in Dark Knight Returns, and get Willem Dafoe as Joker. It's like they were all the right ages back then in the early '90s. That was my first vision of dark, seedy Batman, and it took this long to get something kind of in the ballpark. So I'm like, yay! Yeah,
I was gonna say you finally sort of got the film you wanted.
I can see Clint Eastwood as Batman.
Yeah,
I can see it.
That would
get off my Batmobile. Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Get out of my cave.
Yeah, Batmobile would be a Gran Torino, wouldn't it?
No, yeah, exactly.
But, also, that thing with the Riddler as well. I did like the fact that the green was there, but it was very muted. He's again very.
It was kind of like sickly, like scrubs in an OR that would like a doctor would or a mortician or like an autopsy would wear. It was very sickly, very gross. But
it definitely. I definitely found the sort of jigsaw elements as well, particularly with some of the things like that rat gadget thing that he put on the what was the commissioner's face, wasn't it? That was the commissioner, wasn't it? At that point was
Why did he allow himself to get caught anyway? Sorry, I'm a bit confused. He allowed himself to get caught, right? Because he was just waiting Starbucks or Gotham Starbucks or whatever, and he was just waiting for it to get caught. Why? What was the point of him actually allowing the police to get caught? I couldn't figure it out.
He wanted to do ultimately was to get Batman. He said the lines a couple of times, which was to bring him out into the light, which is Falcone. He really wanted to get. He knew Falcone was the informant, the guy who was also kind of the kingpin. Really, he wanted to do that, and once that was completed, pretty much then his grand scheme had come to an end. Apart from, of course, the Batman finding the clue just to stop the bombings, which he didn't. That's why he was so disappointed. So he'd come to the end of his puzzles. Yeah, he did that. And he was like, "That's me. My games are done." And this guy, this Batman, has actually almost completed them. So that's why he'd stopped. He had nothing more. But obviously, as we saw from that bolted on kind of action sequence afterwards, he'd also been able to make the Riddler
50 friends.
The Riddler army. I'm sure we can come up with a more amusing title than that between us. But yes, so he'd come to the end. It's like, right, my work here is done. So that's why. Apart from the fact that he also, and I'm wondering how many coffee franchises around the world are actually now going to start. They're their own marks, or even us as geeks here who like our coffee frothy, to actually be able to put the maybe an exclamation mark.
Also, another thing, right?
We could go semicolon sometimes, right?
It was obviously Starbucks because the logo's green.
They were really upset that what's his name, Burton did Batman Returns, and with the spewing of green coming out of the Penguin and stuff like that. And McDonald's pulled out, and everybody pulled out because of that. What are they thinking now then? Do you know what I mean? You can't exactly get a Happy Meal from this movie, can you? Do you know what I mean? It's really funny how they rejected that version and got Schumacher to come in. And then they embraced what they rejected in the first place, which is the Nolan version, and now they're embracing it even darker now, aren't they? It's really strange how
maybe that's a good discussion point. Go on, Charles.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say I forget which pizza company it is, but do you guys have the Batman pizza over there right now?
No.
So it's like Pizza Hut or something. It's some big pizza company. I can't remember which one, but
is it called Batman Pizza?
I think so, but it is officially tied into the Batman because it ends like seeing Batman in theaters. But it is a pizza in the shape of a bat.
I want one.
Stuffing inside the body of the
You're
bat.
making me hungry.
It's a real thing.
I want to go and have one right now
for Friday. Yeah, so I've got a pizza cutter. It's got a black handle, close to Batman. I'm actually now, Charles. I'm going to cut out my Friday pizza in the shape of Batman, and my wife is going to love me more or think I'm crazy. Hey, yeah. So thank you for that. I'm inspired.
Just make sure it doesn't have any pineapples in it. That's all I can say.
Oh yeah, no pineapple on it.
No pineapples. Yeah,
definitely. All right. So we talked about the Riddler there. Let's have a bit more of a chat then about Zoe Kravitz's version of Selina Kyle, Catwoman in this. So what are our thoughts on this? Because again, I thought this was done rather well, but I'd like to hear what you guys think. So
another intelligent look at a character. Yeah. And again, I mentioned earlier, and I won't talk much about this, but another one who actually mattered to the plot, mattered to Batman's journey too. So she was there. She was intrinsic with. Obviously, then we got to find out about who her father.
Yes.
Is
which I think is new, right? That's not.
Yeah, it's new. That's not. Yeah, that's not.
Catwoman origin, right?
Yeah.
There was some relationship there,
Catwoman.
but in the Long Halloween, which I know was another influence on this movie. But again, because all the characters really meant something to each other, and they just didn't bring anyone in just for thrills or only to drive a part of the story. She was throughout and in there too. So
I think I got thrilled when she was on screen. Personally, I got thrilled. If you know what I mean. Good-looking woman.
There's no Riddle there, Ian. We
know.
I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was probably more instantly iconic in her Catwoman.
Yeah.
Like she took over the screen when she was on it. In many ways, it was a Catwoman movie that just happened to have Batman and Penguin in returns. But they were all good. They were all very good, and they all popped. But what I like about Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman is the fact that she served the story in much more than previous Catwomen have. I think that she was actually, I think the entire cast in this is kind of like a really nice ensemble where they're a team and everyone kind of supported the story, which sounds shocking. But like they were really all about the story. And the fact that it is a true Batman film where he's like on screen 90% of the movie, which we haven't seen before either. So that was really nice. But it was, for me, the relationship between Batman and Catwoman that I found really, really powerful and sexy, and really, really, there was a lot of chemistry between the two of them in a way that I hadn't really seen. It's different with Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer because obviously they were previously romantically engaged off screen, so they had instant kind of baggage, but also something was there for them. But these two together, I thought were really a great couple, and I hope we see them again in some form with, again, that kind of sexual tension, but also kind of like good versus not so evil, but maybe evil and maybe not even that good, but kind of like, all those shades of gray just clashing against each other. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really strong part of this movie.
Yeah, Batman stopped her, didn't he? Sorry, Batman stopped her from killing. That was a good scene. Sorry, Graeme, go ahead.
No, I was just saying from the comics as well. The romantic lead, one of the main romantic leads for Bruce Wayne stroke Batman is Catwoman, so that there is always that sexual tension. There is always that will Batman cross over to even as a kiss, right? But it happened in this multiple times that they went for it. They went for, actually, she does in part seduce, or if it's not seduction, it's actually they appreciated each other's work so much that a kiss is how they can show that appreciation, at least. But no, it's very much from the comic books there that you do have that. And yeah, most definitely, I agree with you, Charles, that it was brilliantly well done. Yes, serves the story too. And also, as a side note, I only found earlier on that it's a second outing for Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, because she voiced Lego Catwoman in the Lego Batman movie,
Right.
which I thought was a lovely touch too, because she knocked this performance out the park. Yeah,
I think the only problem I had with her was her mask, basically. Stupid mask. Yeah, Gran knitted it for her. It's like, I can't tell who you are because that thing is so wide. But that's the only problem I had with her. I thought she was great, personally.
Yeah, and the motorbikes. It was obviously
I mean, who doesn't like a girl in leather? Come on, gorgeous woman. What can you say?
They really did straddle nicely with this, the sort of enemy ally aspects, particularly with her helping him with the.
Well, she wasn't an enemy.
Club. Well, obviously he had to stop her. Before he actually knew she was in that scene, which actually I thought was quite good, because she held her own in the fight, but eventually he did overpower her, which made, again, realistic sense because of she didn't stand a chance against him. She kicked him a couple of times, but he stopped her. He didn't want to hurt her. Plus, he found out that she wasn't really robbing the place, which is what we were led to believe when we saw her. She was trying to get the I can't remember what she was trying to get something out of the safe, wasn't she? So she wasn't. Right. Yeah. She the only time she actually broke was when she was going to kill. But Batman stopped her, obviously. But she didn't come across to me as Catwoman, the cat burglar, the villain in this one, for me anyway. It definitely played more in the shades of grey on this one. But I mean, I'm hoping, I'm assuming, but also really hoping that this means we're probably going to see her back, in a future installment maybe. But because there is definitely more that can be done there, I feel. But she had, like Graeme said, she was integral to the story. She had plenty to do in this, and I think Batman films historically have always been accused of being sort of over bloated with too many villains, or too many anti-heroes. Let's put it that way, rather than villain. And this one again had a few, but they sort of balanced it out quite nicely.
Well, as she wasn't really the villain, as I said, she was kind of more of a helper, with her own agenda. Yeah, her own agenda. So, out of these four here, I still think Robert Pattinson was the weakest out of the four of them. I thought all the other three was really interesting, especially Commissioner Gordon. I thought he brought something really good to the character. I got to admit, I didn't like the way Pattinson portrayed. Well, anyone could play Batman, let's face it. I mean, but I didn't like the way he portrayed Bruce Wayne at all. I just thought there was nothing there, nothing for me to hold on to, nothing. So, but
really, okay. Well, let's talk about that a little then, because that's interesting. Because I actually thought that this take on Bruce Wayne, I mean, Charles has used a number of times, and I've always agreed with this about and again, I'm a big fan as well. So, the connections with James Bond, whereas Batman and Bond are very similar characters. It's just that the gadgets that Bond has are hidden, and the gadgets that Bruce Wayne has are all in the shape of a bat, But the Nolan films, definitely. I mean, you had one scene with Bruce Wayne and Lucius Fox that could have essentially been a Q and one scene, with him issuing the new costume and the batarangs and
gauntlet.
Stuff.
The gauntlet.
And it was very Bond-like, and likewise Christian Bale, was always very suave, tailor-made suits, good hairdo, all of this sort of stuff. Whereas in this case, not only didn't he really care about it, so he didn't know where his cufflinks were or how to put them on, and all this. We had a completely different take on Bruce Wayne, and I just sort of felt that this portrayal brought something new to what has always been very familiar, and I actually think Pattinson did a great job here. So, what about you other guys? So Ian is not so sold. What about you, Charles?
Oh, I thought he was very, very good. And here's the smartest move Matt Reeves and the team made was skipping origins for everybody. Like no one got an origin, like an old school spend 15 minutes, to establish a new character in the movie, like we saw in previous films, where it was either young Bruce Wayne, or it was each villain falling into a vat or getting electrocuted, or like whatever caused them to become a villain. We just like this Gotham is up and running. Like everything is up and running already when this movie starts, so it hits the ground running and it goes right in the story. Now there are two, if I recall correctly, I need to see it again. There are two moments where exposition just drops and stops the movie kind of dead in its tracks a couple times, but that's all based on kind of like exposition and history that needs to set up where it's eventually going to go. It's not how did this person come up with this costume, how did they come up with their name, how did they do this? Because like in Nolan's films, there's that bit where Alfred has to figure out how many bat masks to order from China so it doesn't getting a red flag, right? Like we have to order like 1,000 of these things and hope that no one guesses it's Batman. Like all that time spent creating a realism that's I don't think necessary, frankly, could have been spent on character, and I feel like this film did. And whether you like it or not, that's your decision. That's cool. But I feel like I appreciated seeing these characters through a different lens than we had previously. And that
they had to, didn't they?
Experience. What's that?
I said they had to. They had to make it different.
Yeah.
And Matt went out of his way to make it different. And
And by the way, I hate to bring up this title because I know it triggers a lot of people, but it's kind of like The Last Jedi. It's kind of like Rian Johnson. He took the game board and he flipped it over.
I'm off.
Like,
I'm off.
Right. But no, Rian Johnson said, okay, we've done this before. Here, let's flip the game board over and see what happens with the pieces. And I admire that. I was like, this is maybe slightly less divisive because I feel like people are, for the most part, enjoying this film, but I think it's the same mindset of like, look, we've been there, we've done that. Why are we doing it all over again? Let's do something different.
The big difference there, Charles.
What's that?
The big difference there, I think, just so we don't sort of derail this whole thing into a thing on that. But with The Last Jedi, that was a chapter of an already established ongoing story, right? Whereas this is a complete fresh reboot and start all over again, right? So maybe that's the reason it's less divisive than Last Jedi. Maybe I'm just putting that out.
Or maybe there's more Batman. There's more Batman in the history of the character and the universe and the franchise that people have just gotten used to Batman being, kind of reincarnated every few years, different books, different movies, different games, whatever. So people are used to different interpretations of Batman. Therefore, when you get a new one, you don't flip out over it. Whereas Star Wars is not quite there yet. I
don't mind Matt Reeves going to a different place and doing the Detective Batman. The only problem I have with it, as I'll reiterate, is that I personally thought that he didn't find the balance between what people like about Batman and what people didn't like about Batman. I don't think he found the balance. I think he was too focused on trying to make it different rather than finding the balance between the entertainment aspect of it. Because after the film had finished and the credits were going up, you had that wave in the cinema that people were just... Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like, that was a great movie, Nobody was saying that. They were just kind of...
But I don't know how that's usable data, because when you go on,
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying at that screening.
I hear you. I
how
hear
it was felt.
I hear you. But again, I've seen a few people say that. It's like, God, everyone at my movie, just felt like they were so glad it was over. I tweeted about this the other day. This is not a joke. This actually happened after this, 4 hours of trailers, ads, blah blah blah, and then 3 hours of Batman. I had to go to the bathroom, so I went to the restroom.
Man,
there's a gentleman at the urinal, and he's humming the Giacchino theme to Batman. Right? He's humming it, not like happily so. He's not like he was like really enjoying his piss while he's humming the Batman theme. And I thought, this film's going to make $1 trillion. It's going to do so well.
I hope so.
It's apparently already done 134 million in its opening weekend, but
it hasn't paid back the money it cost yet, has it? It's about 200 million to make it, but
I agree with what you're saying, Ian, in so much as this wasn't Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, it didn't have that, like when that ended, everybody was whooping and cheering and all of this, and this is a different type of movie altogether.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
But
Graham, it never promised to be No Way Home. That's the thing.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I just thought that I thought they should just. For me, it was too heavy on one side. That's all I'm saying. You know.
But before we dig into that, Graham, I'm sorry because I didn't let you answer this bit. So the thing about Robert Pattinson and his portrayal, have you got any thoughts you'd like to add about that?
Yes. I thought he was awesome, both as Batman and emo
Bruce.
Recluse Wayne. So I'm a big fan of his anyway. You know, Good Time, Tenet.
He's a good actor.
Just amazing, and it was subtle. It wasn't in your face, this one. And there wasn't too much of a gruff voice going on. Maybe we had to get used to that.
That's true. We didn't get Bat voice. That's true.
He did a bit.
But performance-wise, no. Not one drop from anyone. We haven't even mentioned Andy Serkis here either. Well, again, I'm also a big fan of his, so there was that. But no, Patterson just we could have a whole live cast on that and his career. I just think what the guy can do.
He's a good actor.
On screen right now, and I bet you for many, many years to come as well, is properly nuanced and in character too. Again, it was slightly unnerving to see him and to feel his pain as Bruce Wayne. So obviously there's a slight disagreement with myself and Ian there, because I've not seen that before. And yes, that came from writing, but it's not just, black hair. It's not just makeup and hair. It was Pattinson looking absolutely broken and haunted, even to that major funeral scene. I felt for the guy. He was awkward. There were cameras on him. He was walking down, and people were looking at him, and I just felt how he oozed discomfort at being in the public eye. Which you have that from performance. You can't have that from just writing.
Sure. No, I mean, it was definitely, very different to not only Bell, but also Affleck's portrayal of a, very smooth, very confident, ladies' man type Bruce Wayne. And we got it with the relationship here with Selina was he was quite awkward around her. And he was more awkward when he was Bruce Wayne around people than he was when he was the Batman, which
is the usual,
which worked great for this. So
I think Andy Serkis was only in it for like 5 minutes, even less than 5 minutes if you calculate the amount of time he was in the movie. He was in it for very little. It's a shame, really, because he's a really good actor as well. I was looking forward to
it. He drove the story. It was the character. It wasn't the Bruce and Alfred story, was it? It was Batman. Him out there trying to stop this major antagonist, while there's also all this history to contend with. So Alfred too. You could say each of these characters were broken in their own way, but Alfred too was on the cane. The stick there. You don't know what the history is there, but at least he was also quite regretful over his parenting of Bruce. That came out in dialogue, yes. But I thought that there was real. You say chemistry, but actually this was actually chemistry gone bad, because he really was trying to be the uncle or the father figure, but he's looking at this guy who is dressing up at night and going out and pounding out his angst on criminals in Gotham, and I think that hasn't come across so well in many other iterations. Even with the great Michael
Caine.
Caine, thank you. God, I lost my. I just used the word Caine too. Anyway, so even him, he didn't have so much of a regret, or you saw elements of that, but with Andy Serkis's character and how he then played it, there was that you could just see in his eyes and how he was a bit standoffish from Bruce, because it's almost if he didn't agree precisely with or specifically with what Bruce was doing. So I thought that was key too.
Well, Bruce also gives it to him as well, and actually says at one point, "You're not my father," didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He actually he stuck that to him, which was quite well, But for a second, I thought, my God, in terms of subversion, I thought, oh my God, they've killed off Alfred. I actually thought that was going to happen.
I wonder why, Keith.
Yeah. But anyway. Also, I feel like we need to mention as well Jeffrey Wright.
Yes, he was good.
Great things with the career there. He's gone from obviously he's ended playing the sidekick to one iconic character to now be the ally of another famous character. But Jeffrey Wright can really do no wrong, I think. And even though he's called Jeffrey Wright, he can do no wrong. I don't know. What are you guys? What were your thoughts on this take of James Gordon? Because obviously we've had a number of those over the decades as well.
I mean, I didn't think he was as good as what's the guy who played Gary
Oldman.
Gary Oldman. I thought he wasn't as good. I think Gary Oldman was the perfect pitch to be Gordon. Personally, I do like Jeffrey. I like Wright. I think he was quite good in this film. And sometimes, when he wasn't on screen, I missed him. I was like, I'll get back to him. Get back to Gordon. Let's see what he has to say and stuff like that. But I do feel that was underdeveloped as well between him and Batman. But he was competing with Catwoman, I guess, and other stuff as well. So as I said, I still think it's too heavy on the side that they wanted to make it so different, and also. Batman, he doesn't really triumph. He gets shot towards the ending. He had to boost himself up with the thingy to put in his leg or something. And I don't know. I'm just old school. Maybe I'm just old school.
You hate the movie. You hate the movie. We get it.
I don't hate it. That's the thing, Charles. I don't hate it. I did enjoy it, mate. I really did. But as I said, it made me feel a bit down after I came out the movie, and I was like, well,
down is great.
The relationship between Lieutenant Gordon and Batman.
Yeah,
for me, right, guys. Yes, it's a bit tongue in cheek, but this was the dynamic duo, right? These guys were together a lot, and they were solving crime with a classic Batman villain. So there was so much of that. So it was the Gordon and Batman show. For a lot of it, and they did play off each other. And Gordon protected Batman a hell of. You made a comment about the mask not being pulled up, but Gordon was with him all the way, and he was the one when they started punching in that tiny little room, that almost comical. Batman starts punching police officers, and Gordon just had to get in the way and stop him. So I thought that play. So not play, wrong words completely. That protection from Gordon and trusting of Batman as well. I thought that played really, really well together, and you see that in many of the good Batman stories where Gordon is involved. So they had a relationship that it couldn't decouple. That they really did trust each other. So and Wright was Jeffrey Wright. As ever,
was he promoted when the other commissioner died? He was not in this film, so he was still lieutenant. Was he lieutenant Gordon in this? So basically, the other policemen had to listen to him, didn't they? Because he was I think he was the senior, wasn't he? He was the man in charge.
Yeah.
And he
Right,
was the
okay.
thought of
I mean, he literally took one on the chin for Batman, didn't
I
he?
pulled one, yes.
I
But
pulled one apparently, yeah.
And they couldn't shoot Batman up the bum when he was going up the thing. They're about as useless as the stormtroopers, aren't they? Firing, it's like all the bullets are hitting the stairs and everything. They couldn't shoot him in the bum. What's going on there?
no, it's
He's got
bulletproof
bomb armor.
heels.
Bulletproof bat pants or something.
He's got his bat thong on. But
Yeah, bat thong.
Charles, what about you? Any thoughts on Jeffrey Wright's portrayal of Jim Gordon?
I mean, I thought he was fantastic, as he almost always is. I mean, he's just so reliably a great actor, and I loved, again, like, because it's year two, and because we just assume off screen that they've already been through that initial, who are you, what are you doing stage. I love that his Gordon was pretty much always, vouching for him amongst the other cops who did not want Batman on the scene, right? And I love that little bit where they think Batman's going to ruin the crime scene, and Gordon says he's wearing gloves.
Yeah,
Exactly. Little things like that were really cute, and I loved when back at the police station when Gordon says, "Just let me talk to him for 2 minutes," and they walk off, and they have that really quiet, like, "Okay, I'm gonna let you out. Here's the key. Here's how you get out." And like that stuff was really wonderful, and like the thumb drive gag between the two of those, right? Yeah, it's thumb drive. Yeah. Like that, like I don't know, they had nice little comedic bits that were subtle and very, not really big ha 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 laughs, but it was like, oh, I like these guys together, and hopefully we'll see more of that.
Yeah, I heard someone say it's humorless, and I didn't agree with that because there were funny moments in it, but
no,
my comedy.
my wife laughed out loud. I was almost embarrassed because she laughed so loud in the theater when Batman is at Catwoman's place, and he looks down and says, "You got a lot of cats." Yeah. For some reason, my life like exploded with laughter, and I was just like, it was funny, but it wasn't that funny. But there were like little tiny gems kind of sprinkled along the way. It's not like the other Batman films where there's like an obvious overt comedic moment to be had every 5 or 10 minutes. Like this just had like little breadcrumbs along the way, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
but they're both very different movies, though. The Nolan film and this film, and as I keep saying, right, I still prefer the Nolan film because I think there were some stupid moments in it. Don't get me wrong, right? But I think it found the balance between the dark and the fantastical, and I think that's the reason why I think this was too heavy on this side. And I got to admit, right, in the cinema, your audience was far more palatable to this version than the audience that I was with, because no one laughed at anything in this film. And I remember I thought it was going to end, and it went on. It was like Lord of the Rings, and it kept going and it kept going. And I needed to go for a pee because I had like a Coke. I really needed to leave, but
that's quite funny. That's quite funny because the running time side of this, I mean, it's just shy of 3 hours. But I have to say, for me, it flew by. I really did not think this felt long at all compared to like the Eternals, which felt eternal. But
but this was deliberately paced, which on beginning, after the first scene, the establishing of Batman as he's going to be. I thought there was a deliberate pace that, again, on that thought of could they have sped it up, but actually you wouldn't have been able to sustain a faster pace with the story, the detective work that you had. So, there could be an argument of this could have been a mini-series done better, but actually, they did manage to get it under 3. But I'm with you, Keith. I wasn't bored, and it did fly by too. So, and my old man bladder, did allow me the luxury of being able to sit in the theatre for the duration too, and the end credits.
You didn't have a big Coke like me.
No, because I'm sensible. No, of course not.
Are you sure you weren't? You sure you weren't the guys that was next to Charles in the urinal whistling the theme?
I love that story. That story I'm going to tell for years to come, Charles. So thank you there. And I also do want to at some point segue into Michael Giacchino's most awesome music soundtrack too. But I know you've got a
no, absolutely. I mean, runtime wise, we could easily go 3 hours because there's lots to talk about here. But I am sort of conscious that we should maybe start to wrap it up. But what I did want to do, we've talked about the actors and we've talked about the character and story, and we've touched a number of times on the actual style of this film. And so I think now is a good time to talk about the direction, the music, all of those aspects as well. I just wondered, Matt Reeves, how were you guys on Matt Reeves' previous work?
I really have always had an eye on him as being someone who's going to blow up one day. I mean, I really think like his two Apes movies were really a beautiful balance between world building, kind of could be scary visual effects because you're dealing with CG apes, a lot of it, but those apes had emotion that I believed, especially in War of the Planet Apes. I think he's a very he's better than what I would call a journeyman director. He just hasn't like popped as a rock star director yet, and I think this movie might help him do that. But yeah, I think he's a wonderful director, and I think he's good because he's thoughtful. He's not into like fashionable choices like some other directors are. It's like he's a true geek auteur, whereas there are others that pretend to be geek auteurs and really don't deliver. So I think he almost always delivers. It's never perfect. Art is not perfect, but I still feel like he's always got his heart in the right place. And I think he has good taste. And in this film in particular, I really think he delivered exactly visually and tonally the film I had always wanted to see applied to Batman. It's like I really feel like he created the stage for this so well. And that goes for not just cinematography or visual effects or design. It goes for everything. I mean, the editing of this film really quickly. We were talking before about would have been better a little bit longer or whatever. I've read another interview with him. I've been reading a lot of Reeves interviews lately. So they test screened the film at like closer to 4 hours long. And then they test screened it at closer to 2 hours long. And the one that got the highest scores was the 3-hour version, which I think is really interesting. So like there was a shorter version that scored less than the 3-hour one, and there was a longer version that scored less than 3 hours. So I think maybe they found the sweet spot editorially. So I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot it. But no, man, look, this film is exactly the kind of mood I would want in a Batman film that Nolan kind of almost got there, especially in Batman Begins. I think that was kind of like, in some ways, the darkest of the Gothams, especially with the what was it called? The Shallows? What was that?
That's
like
right. The Shallow.
The Shallows with the mind control drug or whatever, like the nightmarish visions we saw and all that. Like that's the kind of fantastical I would be down for. Where it's like this more like psychedelic thing that you can have a credible, plausible reasoning for why it's happening. And in the later films, the Nolan films, I think it became more and more post 9/11. Real city dealing with bureaucracy and terrorists and stuff like that, which again, that's a take of its time. I think that's one reason why those films will stand up for a long time. This was kind of like more of, if anything, I think this was kind of fantastical in a stylish way, maybe not in story or actual action that we're seeing on screen, but I think the production design, the cinematography, just the art of it, the artistry on screen to me was magnificent and beautiful and dark and intoxicating. Going back again to Blade Runner, like this to me is the first time I've seen it in a dystopian imagined city that hit me as hard as 1982's Blade Runner. Like that, these two films to me had the same impact on me just as a environment, and I love that.
Yeah, actually, on that note, I just wondered as well. Obviously, depending which version of Blade Runner we're talking about, and I know you've got a whole documentary about
first version.
But how did you feel about we had the Bruce Wayne voiceover, but we only really had it at the beginning and at the end, and I just wondered, do you have a take on that? What was your sort of thoughts on that?
I didn't mind it. I liked it. And I liked that it was so kind of I don't say cold, but it was very matter of fact. And I like that. And someone else pointed out another article I read where both Batman and the Riddler keep journals, which is interesting. Yes. And that goes back to the whole notion of Batman is just could be on the same coin as the Riddler. They're just different sides of that same coin. But it didn't bother me. It wasn't really there to clarify the story for an audience that was lost, as in the case of Blade Runner. Here it was just more of just like texture and flavor and just setting the stage and wrapping things up with a bow. I thought it was fine. What did you guys think?
and definitely added that, film noir Chandler-esque element. By the way, sorry, I'm not ignoring comments.
Hi,
So
Brian.
even this late, people are still joining the stream. So not Brian has just said evening all. So evening. Thanks for joining us. What about you, Ian? Matt Reeves. Where do you sort of sit with him, sort of prior to this, and with what he's done with this?
I did like the Planet of the Apes films that he did. I thought they were really, really good, really enjoyable, and well done and everything. I mean, as far as this film's concerned, he did a competent job. Nothing to write home about, as far as I'm concerned. He may have had the vision, but everything that he's done in this is kind of like a copy, maybe not copy, influence from another film, Blade Runner with the rain. The photography was really good, but you can't really credit him on that with the director of photography. Obviously they were speaking about certain things, but in the end, I know, as a director myself, I know that I can take credit for the photography in my film, but not really, because I know how it works. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't credit him for the photography in the film. I would credit the DOP definitely for the film, but he's a competent director. I'd watch his stuff. He did a good job on this, as far as I can tell. I mean, I prefer old school directors that uses the camera to express a mood. He kind of shot it in an A to B fashion, where it wasn't. He was okay. He did a good job, as far as I'm concerned. That's all I can say about that, really.
Yeah, and real quick on that, not to sort of again take us off too much of a tangent, but the cinematographer on this is Greg Fraser.
He was good.
Greg's work, includes things like Zero Dark 30 or whatever. But this year, he also was the cinematographer on Dune. So,
oh wow,
been a big year for him. And I don't want to get sort of too technical, but I know he did both on this and Dune, they did a specific process where they would
shoot on film.
Digitally.
Crazy. Why? It doesn't make any difference. I know the technology, right? You shoot on digital, then you put it on film, and then you put it back on digital. It makes no difference. You're still going to get the same flavor. Anyway, I'll stop there. Wow. I think that's crazy.
That's a whole nother live stream.
Where that's crazy. Why would you do that?
But well, I mean, But anyway, I can't fault the cinematography.
Looks
here.
great.
Even though this was optimized for IMAX, unlike Nolan's films, there were no actual IMAX scenes in this. There were, of course, in Dune, but not in this. But Graeme, I want to ask you the same question. I know you want to mention Michael Giacchino as well. You want to talk about the musical aspect. So
I think I'm erring, or if I was a pendulum swinging, I'd be towards the Charles end of the clock here. Just stylistically, and I happened to watch a couple of the trailers today in preparation for this live cast, and just the artistry, what you were seeing as well as hearing, absolutely adored it. Again, it made me feel something. So I wasn't dulled in watching this movie. And Matt Reeves, I forgot he did Cloverfield too. He directed.
He did,
Actually, it was, but because we've talked about, and we all remember that the two Apes movies, and the second, the second movie was, but just outstanding even as a standalone movie. I thought it would have worked well, but obviously it was part of Trilogy 2. That was just the directing of the actors, the emotion and the action there, which we didn't have so much action here, but to bring that crew together, to have Ian, you mentioned earlier, oranges, reds, with practically what would have been a black and white film here. Yeah,
Yeah.
There was so much
Nice.
use of shadows here. It was street. People say noir, yes, but stylistically, going for using Batman coming out of the shadows was exceptional, and my favourite when it comes to the Batman visuals. Not bright and gaudy. Don't get me wrong. That is decent work there. Has been over the years, but I prefer the more moody, dark Batman. So having that work to bring that to the screen and make it cinematic. We talked earlier about the spray painting on the floor and making it cinematic. Even to the detective scene. So getting into the mansion of the mayor there, and the spying that the Riddler first did and the spying that Batman did on Catwoman, it still was cinematic, and I absolutely adored that too. But even there was some off angles, almost Scorsese-esque at times, where you aren't given just a frame here. It's just off. So
it's called Dead Space.
Great.
That's what it's called. Yeah, Dead Space.
Brilliant. There's a lot of dead space even in the action sequence. Yeah, so great. But that made me again feel it didn't pull me out of the movie at all. When somebody made a comment earlier on about where it was shot, so
Scotland, wasn't it?
It was Glasgow, Liverpool, and Chicago, because a lot of Dark Knight, so Nolan's, was shot in Chicago. Adore Chicago's old industrial. Similarly with Glasgow and Liverpool as well in Britain. There was all of that fits Gotham properly, because if you were to shoot in London, there'd be too much of what people know of London now. Similarly, you'd see, I suppose, with New York, we're so familiar with those cities, we're not familiar with seeing old industrial ironwork, Gothic architecture, where they could just shoot rather than have to design it into studio. So that all of that, and I think, Charles, you mentioned the art or the artistry of Matt Reeves. I adored how this looked first, but the sound of it, the I felt through the music and the sound design too. I really would never want to, at this current timeline, live in Gotham or anywhere near Gotham. I just don't want to. And I'm happy that Batman's trying to do something, and so too Lieutenant Gordon, to try and fix things, because it was lovely to be that distance away, to be sat in a very, very comfy IMAX theatre seat and watch it, and then be able to just walk out. And that's brilliant.
Don't come visit Battersea then. Don't come where I live.
That's all I can say. On that, just quickly, I took photos of I was lucky enough to be able to go into the power station, and that was still grimy. You had some grass growing, all the rest of it, and I felt the same similarly there, Ian, with this landscape and with this too. And yes, we were at night time, and yes, it rained a lot. I'm from Wales; it rains a lot too, right? But I'd want to visit Wales again. I do often, but not this Gotham. And well done them for doing that. And with Matt's his imagination coming to the screen, I'd want to have, or at least see, more of that TV series or movies.
No, absolutely. I mean, like you said, that the look that they got with this, it kind of it both made it feel realistic, but also gave it a character as well. And I think they got that balance very, very well here. The other thing is they absolutely nailed the introduction of Batman in this film, I think, because that's always, in every film, that's always a big moment, isn't it? Is when you first see Batman, right from the
Come out of the shadows.
And in this one, he literally was in the shadows, and that worked really well. Well, look, guys, I realise in many respects we've just sort of scratched the surface. You know, there's loads of other actors in this that we haven't talked about. There's loads of other aspects, but I am also conscious that we're just about hitting the 2-hour mark now. So, unless anybody's got anything specific that they want to just mention before we wrap it all up, I do want to give you all the opportunity. So. Any final thoughts on the Batman?
I have one question for everybody. There's a major character that we haven't spoken about, the Batmobile. The Batmobile is always like a key thing in all the Batman movies, and this one's been kind of a controversial one. And I'm kind of curious what everyone thought, because when I first saw it, I hated it. I thought it was a stupid concept for a Batmobile. And now that I've seen it in the movie, I love it. I went 180 degrees on the new Batmobile. Part of that had to do with the sound design was phenomenal. Like that thing, when that came to life the first time, like the audience, you could tell, like everyone's like, "Oh, what is this?" Right? And of course, when you think of it being young Batman, still kind of doing everything by himself with just Alfred, kind of a jacked up muscle car is probably the best he would probably do in his first couple of years as Batman. Maybe later on he'll get something more along the lines of what we've seen elsewhere, but. Yeah, I was just curious what you guys thought about the Batmobile versus other Batmobiles we've seen in other movies.
I thought it was a nice change from the tumbler that we had in the Nolan films. You know, the literal tank was to have something a bit more. Okay, I've heard it called Fast and Furious. You know, like but to have that sort of hot rod muscle car, less sophisticated but still badass and still black, obviously. So yeah, I loved it personally, but yeah, what about you guys?
I'm going to go actually a bit off the question a little bit there, Charles, and actually wax lyrical about the Bat bike, the motorcycles. He used that. I think you can argue me down, but he used that the Bat bike more than he did with the Bat racer. That you can't call it a Batmobile, really, can you?
Why not?
And even that, it was only until one of the final shots. It was actually coming into the final scene, wasn't it? That I noticed the curves on it at the front. I hadn't noticed that at all previously. So I actually the Bat bike was a very clever induction to Batman needing to be mobile, and what we had was obviously when he was driving that through into the Bat cave, that came from the bike, and it was a lot more mobile. He could be a lot more anonymous, so to Catwoman in some ways. By the way, to put it onto topic, but he could be more anonymous with the helmet too, and not have to be in cowl. Or a mask either, so I preferred that. Not much thought on the car. It served its purpose. Yes, it sounded awesome too. But yeah, Batmobile hasn't been much of a. I'm not a petrol head, so I don't really get into that kind of thing. I'm more for the Batwing. I even built one. It's too much.
You're a pilot.
It's too much for me to bring down the Batwing. I built out of Lego myself, out of my own Lego, and but more or less copying the 1989 there. So a long answer for you there, Charles. But yeah, the Bat bike was absolutely awesome, more than the car.
Cool. Just be careful. Don't step on those Legos. It really hurts when you've got no shoes on your feet and you just have socks.
I wear Crocs.
And Ian, you're going to say the 66 Adam West one, right?
No. I personally didn't think much of this Batmobile, if you call it a Batmobile. I just thought it was just a car with a big thing stuck at the back of it. And I like the shot that obviously they used to do that in the 60s, didn't they? With a and it used to go. But I didn't think there was anything special about it at all. It looked a bit weird and it got something stuck at the back and that was it. It didn't really do anything special. And I know this is a different movie to the rest of them, but as I said, the fantastical for me was missing. You know, even the silly things that the Tumbler did and what Burton's one did with the line so it can go around the corner and then it just comes up and turns around. Stupid things like that. And, all, you know, as I'm saying, he might as well just be driving around in a Starsky and Hutch car or something, you know what I mean? Because he didn't do anything special. So, maybe in the next one it'll do something, great. I don't know.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think that's the good thing here. I think that the opportunity here now,
it's to be Batman,
is that they can go kind of anywhere. In fact, in some respects, I thought Christopher Nolan was going to do more of that with his After Batman Begins, and I thought there was going to be more evolution than there actually ended up being in the end. But again, that's a whole nother topic which we can go off at. And I know that there's obviously loads of other subplots and characters and all sorts of things here that we haven't really covered. But yeah, I like that, Charles, to end on the Batmobile. Because that is a character as well, really, isn't it? And inanimate
certainly is,
can be a character, absolutely. But okay, so Graeme, I know that you don't do the sort of whole social media thing, but do you want to tell us about anything that you happen to be working on at the moment?
Yeah, so as with other live streams, I have mentioned the second draft of the novel I am working on too. That is a modern western called Where the River Bends. So I'm still pulling my way through that, and that will be completed this year, moving into a next draft too, and picking away at other stories. So no, not on social media, but when I have something to promote, I will be launching myself out there to the Twitterverse and any other verse that there is to promote myself.
You are the Graeme. You've got it there. That's good. Charles, I changed your picture on this one.
Thank you.
I know you're upset with me with the last one that I used. But do you want to tell people a little bit about your work and where they can find out more about it?
IMDb. I mean, just all of my stuff that's on IMDb is probably on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K or something. Even Crave, my first feature film as director, is available on demand. We just accidentally found it the other day, so it's still out there. And then Love Bite, the short that just wrapped up its festival run, we're going to try to find it at home soon, and we'll get that streaming at some point. And then beyond that, we just started shooting my first non-film documentary, which is kind of exciting and strange for me, but it's a really cool, fun, crazy, dangerous topic that I'll hopefully talk about a bit more later when it's further along. And also, we're getting close to starting a documentary about a film and a very famous, legendary filmmaker that very few people, I think, even know this true story about. And it's one of the craziest behind-the-scenes stories I've ever heard. And that's also one I'll tell you more about, hopefully next time. But we're working on that pretty enthusiastically, and then trying to get my second feature as a director going. And we got a really great story for that. So yeah, it's a lot of prep and early days on three big things for me. So hopefully later in the year I'll have more of a real update. But and social media, as you have it pointed out here under my new and improved photo, is at Lazarica on all the various social medias.
Cool. Okay, well, I mean, that all sounds really exciting. I want to hear more about that. And obviously,
good luck, Charles.
You're welcome back on the stream anytime if you want to talk about or promote any of that, most definitely. So, Ian, tell us what the Mega Geek's up to and where we can find more of you.
Why did you put that picture up? Come on. I'm like Charles now. Wait. well, everybody knows that I made a web series called Rebecca Gull, very successful web series, won loads of awards, blah, blah, blah. You haven't got my other film up, Fallen Angels. You got Bad Day up, though. That's quite cool. And Killing Zone was my very first movie. It's all on the Rebecca Gull YouTube channel. You can watch it for free. Apart from Bad Day, if you want to watch Bad Day, then give me a buzz and I'll just give you the link so you can watch it for free. Rebecca Gull's on there. I'm shooting a test with the new actress that's playing Rebecca for season 2 on the 2nd and the 3rd. So once that's all edited and stuff, I'll stick that on the channel as well. So that's me. Fair enough. In a nutshell. Yeah.
There you go. And yeah, you're obviously already here on Home Media Minefield if you're watching this. So yeah, please check out some of the other work. You can find us on all the social medias there. You can also email us at lswotcast@gmail.com. That's short for Let's See What's Out There. If you want to see some of my creative work, I am in a couple of those movies that Ian's actually mentioned, including the Rebecca Gold web series. So check that out. But if you want to see some of my short films, if you go to my other YouTube channel, which is British Isles, that's EYLES, as in my last name, you can see an anthology of short films called The Urban Chiller Tales. So please check that out. Any comments, welcome. Just some recent things and some bits and pieces coming soon on this channel. So I will put a link. We looked at the Titans of Cult release of Tim Burton's Batman, the one with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. So I'll put a link to the unboxing of that special presentation from Titans of Cult. We've also got the Let's See What's Out There podcast covering Star Trek Picard Season 2, which also came out this week, the same as the Batman. So the first episode of that is now up on this channel, and that will be coming every week for as long as this current season runs. And I am on my way later this weekend to Glasgow to go to Fright Fest Glasgow for the weekend, and we will probably have some content here on the channel talking about highlights from that. But that's where we are. Thank you so much for watching this. As I said, please consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, all of that good stuff. Thank you to those of you that watched live and those of you that made comments. I really appreciate that. And finally, thank you to my three guests, Charles, Ian and Graeme, for giving your thoughts on the Batman and making this an interesting conversation. It's always good when we don't agree on everything. It makes it better.
It's cool, though. It's cool.
It's cool. Absolutely.
I'm not cancelling anyone. Even though I disagree with them, I'm not cancelling anyone. So
okay, but one more thing. So the Last Jedi. Let's talk about the Last Jedi for a minute.
That's a whole other podcast. Yeah. We will see you next time on Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There live. Bye for now.